What do Ottawa's stalled trains, Toronto's underground mega-renos, and a 100% tariff threat from Washington have in common? They all point to how infrastructure, housing, and geopolitics are reshaping everyday life in Canada. It's Monday, January 26th, 2026. A quick Ottawa weather check. High around -8 degrees Celsius, low near -15. No snow. If you're commuting in the capital, OC Transpo's Line 1 is running with reduced service after spalling and cartridge-bearing assemblies sidelined about 70% of train cars. To counter crowding, OC Transpo says it will boost frequency with the trains it has available. In Toronto, the new Finch West LRT logged 350 delays between December 7th and December 31st, with winter conditions and switch technology problems to blame. Metrolinx and the city say they're working to improve performance. 2 new lines in 2 big cities, both learning hard lessons about winterizing critical infrastructure. Housing is drawing sharp lines between luxury and necessity. Toronto is moving to rein in so-called iceberg homes, properties with massive multi-story basements. City staff warn those excavations can stress soils, hurt tree growth, and reduce stormwater permeability, elevating flood risk. A city committee has adopted recommendations for minimum underground building setbacks to curb the trend. Meanwhile, the broader market is wobbling. New home sales in the Greater Toronto Area hit record lows in 2025, 81% below the 10-year average, putting housing targets at risk and potentially threatening up to 100,000 construction jobs if the slump holds. Far to the north, the stakes are even more basic. Communities like Betchico in the Northwest Territories face severe challenges just repairing homes in harsh winter conditions. When residents can't afford essential fixes, the result isn't just discomfort, it's a public health and safety issue in some of the toughest weather on Earth. And yet housing intersects with geopolitics too. Prime Minister Mark Carney says Canada has no intention of pursuing a free trade deal with China, even as President Donald Trump threatens a 100% tariff on Canadian goods if Ottawa were to sign one. The trigger for the rhetoric: Canada and China recently agreed to reduce tariffs on certain goods, allowing up to 49,000 Chinese-made electric vehicles into Canada annually, while China lowered retaliatory tariffs on Canadian agricultural products like canola. Ontario Premier Doug Ford wants Canadians to boycott Chinese EVs to protect the auto sector, and Washington worries Canada could become a drop-off point for Chinese goods entering the U.S. Experts warn the volatility of these threats undermines the predictability of the trading system and could hurt both economies. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe calls it damaging to the fair trade norms many took for granted. And watch the Bank of Canada. Its next interest rate decision may weigh the uncertainty from these trade tensions. That uncertainty bleeds into domestic politics. The Carney Liberals start this session 2 seats short of a majority after Chrystia Freeland's resignation. They haven't secured backing from Conservatives, the Bloc, or the NDP. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has signaled a spirit of cooperation on fast-tracking certain bills, if the government agrees to conditions, including legislative changes to enable major projects like pipelines. On the world stage, Carney condemned what he called U.S. economic coercion at the World Economic Forum, and his team is signaling a pivot, less reliance on a rules-based international order, more realism about great power rivalry. That posture connects to defense procurement and continental security. On that front, we've learned more about why Ottawa stuck with the F-35. In a 2021 Defense Department competition, the F-35 scored 95% on military capabilities, versus 33% for the Gripen, with mission performance and upgradability as decisive factors. U.S. Ambassador Pete Hoekstra has warned that if Canada limits its F-35 purchases, NORAD might need adjustments, potentially meaning more frequent U.S. fighter deployments into Canadian airspace, as we've seen in past F-15 and F-22 missions. Critics caution that public spats over procurement could weaken deterrence and embolden adversaries. In other words, the jets you buy shape the sovereignty you can project. Speaking of sovereignty, Greenland is back in global headlines. President Trump had pushed the idea of acquiring Greenland, citing U.S. national security. After talks with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, he reversed course, dropping the insistence on U.S. control and shelving tariff plans against Denmark and other NATO allies. Instead, there's now talk of a framework deal focused on Arctic security collaboration, without Denmark handing over Greenland. Greenland's Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen is demanding clear respect for Greenlandic sovereignty, while Greenlanders seek support from Canada against annexation threats. China and Canada have both publicly supported Greenland's sovereignty. Beijing, eyeing a constructive Arctic role, also used the moment to criticize what its ambassador called selective application of international law, implying the U.S. applies rules when convenient. For Canada, this all lands squarely in our Arctic backyard, where climate, security, and Indigenous rights converge. A quick look east. Global News at 6 Maritimes highlighted incoming storms and coastal weather warnings, a bright spot of job growth in some sectors despite global headwinds, new policies to chip away at hospital wait times, and a community push to boost digital literacy for seniors so they can keep pace with technology. It's a snapshot of resilience and adaptation, coastal communities working through climate-driven weather swings while upgrading skills and systems. Weather resilience also featured in Newfoundland and Labrador. NL Hydro has lifted its power warning after clearing fragile ice at the Baie d'Espoir plant, which had been fully shut down for the first time since 1967. The province remains on a power watch as cold temperatures persist, and people are being told to be ready to conserve if needed. In Ontario, winter storm warnings have been lifted for Toronto and Mississauga after heavy snowfall, though parts of the Golden Horseshoe are still under severe weather advisories. For many, it was a dig-out weekend that reminded us how quickly conditions can change. Let's end on a high note for hoops fans. The Toronto Raptors just stunned the league-leading Oklahoma City Thunder, a statement win that showcased smart adjustments, sharp execution, and a balanced attack. TSN's Matt Devlin and Jack Armstrong broke down how Toronto took away OKC's comfort zones and turned key moments in their favor. In a season where consistency has been the question, beating the top team says the ceiling might be higher than the standings suggest. Before we go, here's that Ottawa forecast once more. High around -8 degrees Celsius, low near -15. No snow. If you've got a transit story, a housing tip, or a neighborhood initiative we should spotlight, send it our way. I'm back tomorrow with more on Ottawa, national headlines, and the stories shaping your day.